Thank you very much. So, good evening. Welcome to everyone in the room. Thanks for coming out. And if you're watching at home, welcome to you too. My name is Paul Thomas. I'm the chair of the planning board. This is your planning board. And we have Arlene, our clerk. We have Bill Brady is the town planning consultant. And Shane Egan is the town attorney, just so you know who's on the stage. A note to everyone that the meeting is being televised and recorded. The session from now until 6:55 is our second workshop for the Six Senses application. After that, we'll take a brief break, and the planning board will conduct its regular meeting starting around 7. We have agendas available on the table, and they're also posted on the town website. If you're interested in following the application going forward, the best way to do it is to monitor the planning board section of the town website, where agendas are posted and where we will be posting application materials and other documents relating to the proposal. So we do have 2 meetings on Six Senses this week, and I'd like to just clarify what's going on. This is the planning board, and this is a workshop session. The Zoning Board of Appeals, which is a different board, will be also holding a meeting on this. That's on Thursday, and that's a public hearing in this matter, and that relates to an appeal from rulings made by the code enforcement officer, and that's Thursday night. The meeting starts in this room. It's also being televised. Tell me if I say anything wrong here. Starts at 6:30, although I think they have other agenda items, so they may not get to this exactly at 6:30. They will be taking public comments as part of their process. So this is part of a continuing review of the application by the planning board. We will be requiring more submissions from the applicant, reviewing input from other involved and interested agencies, considering public comments we receive at the hearings that we will hold, and those will be scheduled shortly, and conducting our own independent review assisted by our engineering and planning consultants, some of whom are here, before any decisions are made. This is an informal discussion between the applicant and the planning board. We will not be accepting comments tonight, but we will soon. I'm sure everyone wants to speak, and I just want to make sure everybody understands we will not make any decisions without getting comments from the public. And I am available offline if anybody has questions about, process. I can't go into substance, but process. I'm happy to try to explain that to people. We're first going to hear a brief presentation from the applicant, and that will cover, among other things, updates to the proposal, and it includes slides that are going to be projected on the screen to your left. And there are some updates. Even if you were here last time, you may want to follow along with that because there have been some changes to the plan, and we're all going to be looking at those. If you're following at home or you want to study the plans later, the most current site plan is on the town website, and all of that is on the planning board, is under the tab for the planning board. Then you go down to agendas, and then it's all in there. There's a link there, and you can see the maps and the correspondence and some of the other materials that we've been looking at. After we complete the workshop at about 6:55, we'll come back for the regular session of the planning board, and for the members, our agenda is rapidly shrinking as we speak, so you'll be glad to hear that. But that will start at around 7 or 7:05. And we'll do that roughly in order, except for the things that have been taken off. Does anybody on the board have any, or consultants, any questions or comments before we start?
Andy, should I mention what we were talking
You get going, Mike. Yeah.
In the comments we received from the public about this, and in the comments we got on the Cornerstone project in our prior meeting, there seems to be an interest on the part of the neighbors in each project in getting some involvement in the workshop process. And we were kicking that around. I don't think we have a particular proposal to make, but it does seem, at least to me, that there may be some merit in it. It should not just be, if there is something like this, it should be a repeat of the public hearing process. We have that. That's well set up. But in both cases, the neighbors seem to have organized themselves, and there may be a way for a couple of representatives to meet with the developers in each case and have maybe a fruitful exchange in a quiet way about aspects of the property. Maybe some items can be taken off the table, maybe some can be added, maybe the planning board or a couple of its members get involved directly, maybe they don't, I don't know, but it's a comment we've heard, we're thinking about it. If anybody has further thoughts about it, either from the developer or from the public, I at least would be interested in hearing more about that.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should talk about it. Thanks, Jock. Anybody else? Anything? Okay. So I'm going to turn over, Kelly, are you going to be the, okay. Yeah. And just a reminder, try to stay mic'd. And anybody else on the board who wants to speak, you have to make sure your mic is live. And we will.
Kelly, want this?
And Brandon, can you show the screen while Kelly is making the presentation, if you wouldn't mind?
Is this on? Do you know?
And is the mic, the table mic, are you hearing the table mic?
As long as it's plugged in. Wait, can she talk into it?
I'm talking into it.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay.
Do you need this?
I don't because I can't, the way the
She
table's
can't walk
located,
and
I
do-
can't
yeah, she has to
even
do
see
it
the- I
remotely.
can barely see the screen, yeah. So I think next time we'll try to figure out a way so that we have.
Wait,
just-
if you, what about if you walk that way where you could see the screen?
It's okay. My whole goal tonight is to, thank you, Arlene, but our goal tonight is to try to conduct a workshop with the planning board and discuss the application. So let me just start. I'm Kelly Leibolt with KARC Planning Consultants. Thank you for having us tonight to review this project.
Can I just, sorry, there's a, if you could just make sure you speak up, just because the people behind you we don't have any amplifiers in here, and I know we're giving you a lot of instruction.
Okay.
Just so they can hear you, because you're facing us, we can hear you, but they may not be able, okay.
I feel like I'm yelling at you.
No, you're not, you can yell at
No,
us.
you're fine, that's
Okay,
fine.
yeah.
Next to me is Mr. Palumbo, Michael Palumbo, who is with the IHG Group. Next to me is Rodney Morrison with the LRC Group. So we did bring all of our consultants. We have our entire team here this evening to answer any questions that you, the board, has. So I'll just introduce everyone if I could. We have Victoria Polidero, who is our attorney. We've got Michael Luft-Weisberg, who is our architect with Workshop. We have Henry Thomas, who is the registered landscape architect with the LRC Group. We have, let's see, gotta get to the back. We have Carrie Dooley, who is with MJ Engineering, and she is the engineer for water and wastewater. We've got Ken Worsted in the back, who is with Creighton Manning. He's our traffic consultant. And we have Carol Knapp, who is our ecologist and biologist with Aspen Environmental. So thank you again for having us tonight. We're hoping to just take 2 minutes to bring the board sort of up to speed because it's been some time since we were before you last, and then we'll go into the changes on the plans. We'll talk about some of the changes that we've made, and then hopefully we can turn the discussion over to you, Mr. Chairman, and your board members so that we can have a productive dialogue about the plans and any additional comments that you have moving forward. So just as a quick reminder, we were last before you in October, on October 3rd, and at that meeting, if you remember, we did a lengthy presentation. We had provided you with a full set of site plan drawings, had engineering drawings, landscaping, lighting, and so forth. We also provided you with a rendering of all 4 sides of every building that is existing and proposed on site, as well as the colors and materials for those buildings. So we did not bring all of those renderings tonight. We had already gone over those with you. We can certainly bring those back for another meeting or for the public hearing, but for tonight, we just wanted to focus on the changes to the plan. Since that meeting, we did receive comments from the board that night. We did receive comments from your consultants. And we made a subsequent submission in November. Your consultants reviewed that submission in November and also provided us with comments. We responded to those comments and submitted in January, and that's the submission that's before you tonight. So it's, one submission reviewed by the board and its consultants, the second one was reviewed by the consultants, and then tonight, hopefully, we're going to obtain your comments on the January submission. So, Amy, we're going to get to the first slide, which shows the modifications to the plan. So I'm on the sheet that just says minor updates since 11/2023. So there were very de minimis changes that were made to the plan since the original site plan that you looked at in October to today. So the first change had to do with the location of parking. So there was parking and some improvements on the property that's in Hyde Park. If you recall, that's the property on the 9G side of the stream. And so that parking was relocated. You'll see a big number 1 on the plan up by the equine facility where there is existing parking and existing porous or impervious surfaces up in that area. And the parking that you see looks very condensed. That's because much of that parking is valet parking, but it's been relocated up to that top area. The second modification, number 2, is that if you recall, we had an elevated water storage tank up on the ridge. That water tank has been removed, and then, of course, the access drive to that water tank, so removing some of the disturbed areas. That tank will now be underground, so the water supply tank would be underground. We relocated, number 3, we relocated the gatehouse, so it's outside of your 200-foot setback. There was a small portion of the gatehouse that was in that setback requirement, and so we shifted it so it's outside of that, so all of the buildings are outside of those setback requirements. And then number 4 is there was a monument sign that was on 9G, just identifying the location of the property, a typical monument sign that you would see, and we removed that sign. 5 is just minor technical comments and modifications that we made in response to your consultant comments. So for example, there might have been relocate a storm line or addressed water and sanitary. All of those minor modifications are in the cover letter that we provide you. So when KRC replies back to the town, there is a detailed response letter. Oftentimes they're very long, but every comment that's raised by the board or its consultants is listed individually, and there's a response provided for each one of those items. So the January 19th submission that you have in front of you is very detailed. I just blew up the sheet nomenclature so that you could see all of the sheets that are included in your plan. I'm not going to go through every one of these sheets tonight. I'm just going to hit on some of the highlights that I think that we may want to discuss, and we can pick up on some of these other sheets. If you've reviewed the plans and you have questions on a particular drawing, don't hesitate to bring that drawing up. So the first sheet that I want to talk about is the wetland map, and I know there's been a lot of discussion from your consultants on the wetlands that are on site, and we wanted to provide a clarified map in your set. So on this drawing, you'll see 3 different wetland types. The first type is labeled A, and A are local jurisdictional wetlands, so those are Town of Clinton wetlands. Around each wetland, we've shown a 100-foot buffer, and in some instances, that buffer isn't applicable, for example, on the Army Corps of Engineers, but we just wanted to show you what 100-foot buffer would be around each of the wetlands to show you that we're not disturbing the wetlands and we're also not disturbing the buffer areas. The second type of wetland on site are what are called federal or Army Corps of Engineers wetlands, and those are wetlands labeled B. That's the main wetland that comes down through the site. The third type of wetland is a New York State DEC regulated wetland, and we've labeled that wetland C. So again, overall on the site, you have local wetlands that are identified as letter A. You have Army Corps jurisdictional wetlands that are labeled B, and you have New York State DEC regulated wetlands. And that wetland is predominantly on the south side of the site. It's past all of the improvements that we're proposing, and so there's no impact at the moment to the New York State DEC regulated wetlands. So I just wanted to clarify it. Is that, everyone understands that, so we can move forward on the wetlands?
Yeah, the Crum Elbow is a DEC regulated
The Crum Elbow is an Army
water
Corps.
course.
The
Oh.
Crum Elbow is a B-type wetland, so that's an Army Corps wetland. The Crum Elbow Creek becomes a DEC regulated wetland on the south side of the site. So there's a big red line on the drawing between B and C. That's the demarcation where the Crum Elbow becomes a DEC regulated wetland. So the portion of the Crum Elbow that travels through this site, where you have the bridge crossing and for the proposed bridge crossing, are Army Corps jurisdictional federal wetlands.
The
Go on, yeah, sorry.
the NPV folks in their February letter suggested that you pursue an Army Corps of Engineers jurisdictional determination of the federal wetlands. Is that going to go forward, or are there problems with that?
So I will let Carol Knapp talk about that. She's our wetland consultant. I will tell you that we did meet out on the site with New York State DEC, and so we commenced that discussion with them on the location of their wetlands, but we can ask, Carol, do you want to address the Army Corps? Sure.
You have to,
Can you get the microphone, please? This way they could hear you on TV.
Okay, we would be more than happy to request that the Army Corps come out and do a jurisdictional determination on the wetland delineation. However, the problem is, if there is no impact, if there is no disturbance of jurisdictional wetlands, the chance of them coming out is pretty nil. I've been waiting for them to come out on a couple of sites where there's minimal impact for up to 2 years. So because there is no impact, there is no jurisdiction, so they will probably not come out and do it. But we would be more than happy to have your consultant go out with us and walk the site and concur. We've had the DEC go out, and again, your consultant would verify the town as well as the Army Corps wetlands.
Sorry, can I just ask, in terms of the Crum Elbow, the discharge of the wastewater into the, that does require a DEC permit, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So that aspect of it is regulated by DEC, but I understand the red line, but,
Yes, it's water quality.
yeah.
Itself is a Class A AT wetland, and going through the, I'm sorry,
AT stream.
AT stream, I'm sorry. And then the small wetland and the small stream that comes through the site is also a Class A, but not Class AT. But the wetlands surrounding them are only jurisdictional for the Army Corps and the town. They are not DEC wetlands.
Thanks.
So I think I think there was an issue about when were you going to get confirmation from the DEC about where their wetlands ended, and so is this line confirmed from the DEC, or are you still waiting for that confirmation?
So I'll answer it this way. We met at the site on December 19th with a large group of representatives from DEC, and we walked the site with them. We have submitted additional documentation to them in response to the questions that they raised at that meeting, and I would imagine that post that submission, they're going to give us their determination.
Okay. So you don't have it yet?
In the field,
Okay.
there was general consensus that that was the location of the edge of the New York State DEC wetland.
Thank you.
And we've added the 100-foot buffer.
Yes, so you can see that. Okay, so next slide, if you could, Amy. So again, this is just kind of a summary. So all of the aquatic resources have been identified and the site wetlands have been delineated. There are no impacts to the Army Corps, which is the federal jurisdictional wetlands, or New York State DEC wetlands. So again, no impacts to Army Corps wetlands and DEC wetlands. There are permits that may be needed for local wetlands. So the town of Clinton has a wetland ordinance, and the town of Clinton will likely need to require the issuance of permits for impacts to the wetlands and impacts to their buffer. When you raise the issue about the discharge for the wastewater treatment plant, so there are DEC permits that would be required as far as a speedies permit and a water quality permit, and possibly a protection of waters permit for the bridge crossing. So it's not to say that there aren't DEC permits that are required. What we're saying is that that's not a DEC regulated wetland.
Right, and I was going to ask you, maybe Alex already asked this, you're consulting with DEC, and how does that work? Are they going to come back to you or to us with?
So that's a good question. So they, at the December 19th meeting, they asked for a list of items, typical to like a planning board. When we leave the planning board meeting, you ask us for a series of items. So we collected all of that information. We provided them with a new submission. We'll certainly circulate that to the town for your files. The DEC will review that. We've asked them for another follow-up meeting. And as soon as we know what that date is, we can certainly let you know. But it's an ongoing process, Mr. Chairman, typical to some of the other agencies. So it's an ongoing process like that is with DOT or Department of Health.
And so was that submission the information that they... Sorry, was that submission the information they asked for, both with regard to the end of the wetland and also whatever discharge permits you need?
Yeah, yes.
Both.
Yes. So what'll happen is, once they review the full impacts of the project, they'll come back and give us a list of the permits that would be required.
On the wetlands, you just mentioned that you might need a wetlands permit. I noticed that Cottage 15 is entirely within, that's a new building, entirely within the buffer. So is that, it looked like all of the rest of the new buildings you tried to move away, not be in the buffers, although some of them are right up next to them, but Cottage 15 is squarely in the middle of the buffer.
Yeah. This one. Yeah. Sorry?
No, that's only the boardwalk crossing. Sorry. I don't want to talk over Kelly.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely, that cottage is within your buffer, so that would be a permit to the buffer. And then we're proposing a boardwalk connecting the two areas across that isolated wetland to the southern portion of the site. That would be technically the only impact that we're asking for in the wetland itself, the delineated wetland itself.
Can you talk louder, please?
Excuse me, could you speak up?
Yeah, they can hear. You gotta speak louder.
Okay. Two parts to that, Alex. One is, yes, correct, the cottage that's proposed would require a buffer permit. The wetland itself, the only place where we're showing proposed impact to it is where the boardwalk crosses from one cottage area to the other. And that's in that southern isolated wetland portion.
Across the pond, yeah.
Yeah,
Or
we
not the
worked
pond,
to
but-
keep everything out of those buffers everywhere possible.
So for the cottage, right, I'm sure you're familiar with the wetlands, section of the code. Is there any reasonable alternative? Is there any place else to put that cottage other than in the buffer?
It's something that we can look at, yes, and I think we're looking at that.
Sorry. All I'll add to that is, when we looked at that area, that none of that land in there is natural. It was all previously disturbed. All that soil in there is human placed. So we thought it would be nice. So we're proposing it for that reason.
Okay, any more questions on the wetlands before we move on? I just want to make sure that there are no other issues before we move on.
Just on that cottage, the cottage will be connected to the main wastewater system and
Yes.
the water supply system.
Correct, yes, that's.
So there won't be septic or well up there, I guess, which mitigates a little bit. But to Alex's question, you're looking at alternative sites, so we can talk about that at some
Yes.
point. Okay.
We're going to go to the site plan. Okay, so the next slide really just represents the overall site plan for the project. Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to go through this again, just to identify each of the buildings and so forth on the plan, but for purposes of time, perhaps it's best to move on and just review the balance of the slides that I have, and we can certainly come back to this if you have any questions. I will tell you that we
yeah.
went over, we highlighted the de minimis changes that were made to the plan between October 3rd and tonight.
Is there a way of doing a very, very quick overview of the site plan? But I do want to get to, like, the screening and some of the other things that are added since the last time we spoke. So do you want to we don't want to go building by building, but you want to go category by category or something like
Sure, I
that?
can just kind of do a quick overview.
Okay.
So let's just start with access to the site. So there's an existing ingress egress at the site, and we have discussed with the planning board and obviously with DOT a minor relocation of the location of that access point and a minor reconfiguration of the driveway, mostly to accommodate vehicles so that we have room for vehicles to pause prior to crossing the bridge. So a minor reconfiguration of that access driveway. The existing bridge will not be relocated, that will not move. We are proposing a redecking of the bridge, which would support a widening of the bridge to support two-way traffic. We've completed a study of that. We are happy to discuss that if you'd like us to, but there's no modifications to the abutments and no modifications to the portion of the bridge that's in the wetland. The second new ingress egress is proposed south of the site, and that's shown on the drawing. That would be a new bridge abutment, a new crossing that would accommodate two-way traffic. That bridge is proposed to span the stream crossing, so to minimize any impacts or any permits that would be required from Army Corps for any impacts into that stream crossing. I will let you know that we did present the location of that second ingress egress to the New York State Department of Transportation. We have coordinated back and forth with them, and they have approved the location of that ingress egress. They will continue, obviously, to review the traffic impact study and the information that we provided to them for the issuance of permits, but they have, from a geometry standpoint, approved the location of that ingress egress. As you enter the site from the main driveway access, there is a visitor gate, and at that location, visitors will be directed over to the parking area to the south, and from there, people will leave their car, and any guests will be transported throughout the site using on-site vehicles or golf carts that'll be utilized throughout the site. The two main buildings on the center of the property are predominantly where most of the services, the events, and the food services would be provided. To the south of both of those buildings are where we have most of the lodging and the various structures for the guest housing. As you proceed up, it's hard because I can't scan and show you on the drawing where I'm referring to, but as you proceed up to the top to the north part of the site, predominantly is where you have the existing buildings. So there are some buildings, again, I can't point to the drawings for you, but there are some existing buildings that will be removed. Most of the buildings are staying and will be renovated. To the north of the site is the equine facility, which I think most of you can see when you travel up and down 9G. There's no modifications proposed to that structure. That'll stay in kind. And we are proposing the addition of the parking up along that area, where mostly you see there's really just dirt parking and a dirt parking lot up in that area. Is that sufficient for you then to move forward? Again, it's hard for me to review the site plan without having the pointer and be able to show you what I'm referring to. It's a difficult process here.
I think the town of Clinton should invest in some updated technology.
I have here. It's just the microphone.
I mean, I'll pay for it if I have to.
Yeah, no, I request the microphone, don't worry. Hopefully soon, but I have here if you wanna.
Maybe next meeting.
It's going through channels.
Well, can she point it? Maybe she could point. Yes, here.
It's not going to be useful because you can't see it. That's the problem.
Is
Yeah,
it
but the
working?
public
It's
can
working.
see
Okay,
that.
I think they're saying it's working, kind of.
Okay, so we'll move on.
Do you want, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess 2 points on the ingress and egress, the access ways. In your response letter, you kind of acknowledged that we haven't seen any details of those proposed crossings, so I don't know, when are you planning to submit those to us?
So I think the sequence of steps is we really wanted to sit with this board and talk to you about the geometry of the site and the site plan itself before we started to prepare any more detailed drawings relative to those bridge crossings. And again, there is a sequence of order at which this needs to proceed. So this is really our first meeting where we have presented this option to you, and we're hoping to get some input from you tonight. Obviously, we've been proceeding with DOT in a linear fashion, which is typical, but we'd like to get some more information back from you. Once we get some feedback from the planning board, then we'll proceed with the more detailed design for those structures.
And you said you have DOT, you said DOT approved the geometry of the second location, the location? And one of our consultants said that they were looking for DOT approval of the conceptual approval. Is that what you consider that you have, or?
No, not yet. The
Not-
DOT approval, the conceptual approval is in totality, is the traffic impact study.
Yeah.
And the location of the ingress egress. So at
So-
the moment, they approved the location of this second driveway, meaning where is it on 9G? Does it provide sufficient sight distance if you're turning left or right? So it's the location of that second driveway and the presence of the second driveway. So they're allowing a second driveway at that location. From here, they'll continue to review our traffic reports and will provide us with correspondence back and forth to which we'll respond to.
So when do you anticipate getting that overall conceptual approval from DOT?
If I had a magic, a glass ball, I would be able to tell you. This DOT today is very, very responsive. We've had really great success with the new permit engineer. We would hope that it would progress along with this board and the sequence of this board. At the end of the day, the DOT cannot issue a conceptual approval until after this board has completed seeker. So at the end of the day, it'll be after seeker.
And I think the bigger issue with the ingress, and it's not holding up our review, we're proceeding, but we're aware that you've gotten a negative determination from the town of Hyde Park, essentially indicating that they don't think that you're permitted at all to use their parcels for access to the project. So are you guys, do you have a plan B, or, how should we think about that? In that right now, the town of Hyde Park is saying you can't use the site for your intended use through their parcel.
So we have a application into the town of Hyde Park for an appeal, and we'll continue to keep the town apprised of that, but we're asking you this evening so that we can continue to review this application with the plan that we have before you.
Yeah, we are continuing to review it. I guess my question is, do you have an alternative?
Tonight, we don't have an alternative.
Okay. I don't know, Paul, was there anything else you wanted to?
Can I just ask practically what the two entrances are used for? Is one for customers and deliveries, or is one an in or an out,
That's a
or
really good question.
depending on what way you're coming on 9G?
The northern entrance, which is predominantly where the existing ingress egress is for visitors and guests. The entrance to the south is predominantly for deliveries, what normally you would call back of house, so deliveries and staff.
Just a reminder, please speak up.
There's to speak up. In terms of traffic flow, I assume part of the study is, right, how much traffic is coming in at any given time, and, right, being on a, right, one lane, 2-lane road, right, with no traffic signals. Do you anticipate that the road has to be altered at all in order to kind of make a smooth traffic
So we
flow?
have a couple of slides that are on traffic and ingress egress, and perhaps we can reserve that
Sure.
question there. The short answer is no, we don't anticipate any improvements other than clearing for sight distance, but I'll bring Ken Worsted up and we can talk about that when he comes up, if that's okay.
So I think, just so everybody's aware, they have a traffic consultant, we have a traffic consultant, there are traffic analyses being done and debated among the consultants, so that's something we're looking at. We don't have all the answers yet on that, but that is being analyzed and will be part of the determination that we make.
And that's
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a good point, Mr. Chairman. So all of these issues they evolve. There's a sequence of events. So we don't have all the information tonight, which isn't abnormal. This is a typical sequence of a process. We do have our traffic consultant here. We had not received comments back from your traffic consultant
Okay.
on the submission, so we'll just ask if maybe
I
they
think they came in, when did we get those?
Just late this afternoon.
Yeah, they just came in today.
Okay, good. So if we can get those, so we.
Okay, so we can touch on that. I really want to have some time for the board to give you general comments. I know that's what we're looking, what you're looking for. So I'm interested maybe in covering, the wastewater situation, because people are probably going to be concerned about that. And the screening, which is a new feature, I think that's a new feature, the screening on the side and along 9G. So people have a sense of what you're proposing, and then I think the board members should start thinking about your general questions and concerns, because we only have till 6:55. We can have another meeting. We're going to have other meetings. This is not the last meeting, but I think that we really need, we're at a point where we need to start giving macro comments.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Okay.
Why don't I'll kind of quickly go through, we did the site plan, utility plan. Again, in your sheet set is a very detailed utility plan showing water and wastewater.
What's the title of the,
Utilities plan?
It's utilities, okay.
It's just, I apologize that this is a bit awkward. We thought that we were
What
all going to be
page?
at the same table, and we're not at the
Nine.
same table.
Sanitary sewer,
Nope. before
Drainage? No.
Utility.
utility.
Page 9,
Then there's water total.
utilities.
Utility, thank you.
So I'm gonna go to sheet 10, which is, I'm gonna go through each of the utilities. I'm gonna talk about water, and then I'm gonna talk about sanitary sewer. So we'll start with water. I just want to talk about the existing system that's there now. So obviously, this is an existing facility. So the wells there were tested. They have a very, very high yield, and so the applicant is proposing to continue to use those 2 wells, so there will be no new wells that will be installed. Each of
Okay, no,
those,
that was no new wells.
no new wells.
Okay.
Each of the existing wells are capable of producing 90 gallons per minute, which is approximately 129,000 gallons per day. And so these wells can more than adequately supply the water for this proposed project. The existing site uses 5,350 gallons per day. The project will continue to use the existing water treatment facility. So the water supply facility is located in a bunker next to the Ward House, and then there's a separate treatment room next to the Kelly Barn. So the existing wells will be used, and the existing water treatment will be used. Obviously, there will be upgrades to the water treatment facility, but there'll be no new wells and no modification to that location of the treatment.
Is this different from the original proposal, or is that, it is? Yeah. You were saying no, and she was saying yes.
I was, because my no is to that there are no new wells. Those 2 wells.
There are no new wells,
Right,
but the
they-
wastewater, I thought there was going to be a new,
To wastewater, yeah.
oh, you're, okay, sorry.
We're still on
Oh,
that.
Go ahead.
Apologies.
Okay, so on the proposed, that was the existing, we're talking about existing water, on the proposed system. So the proposed demand is 18,600 gallons per day. And I think there were questions that were raised, whether it was the consultants or the public, as to how is that calculation determined? And so these are calculations, and your town engineer, I know Pete Cetera isn't here tonight, but your town engineer can verify all of this, but all of these are calculated based on 10 state standard. And it's just, it's a state standard that we utilize. It's issued by New York State DEC to calculate water demands and water supply. So again, as the current wells can provide high capacity, we're going to use the existing water supply. There was a hydrologic study that was initiated in August of 2023, so just this past August, to verify the yield of those wells. When they do that, they also look at drawdown on that particular well and then impacts to adjoining properties. So after the 72-hour pump test that was conducted, there was no significant drawdown on the on-site wells. I'm just going to run through this, Mr. Chairman. If anyone has any questions, we can answer. There was 90% recovery that was achieved within 24 hours, so that's a very good recovery on those wells. The radius of any significant pumping influence does not extend off the property. So I'll say that again. The radius of any significant pumping influence does not extend off the property. The part
Does that,
five-
I'm sorry, does that mean
no
people living
impact-
around
No
this,
impact to off-site wells.
people living around this facility, their water levels will not be affected? Is that, and how is that established?
Because
Because
there's
they,
no,
go ahead, sorry.
what they do is they monitor the influence of those particular wells, and there was no impact. I can have Carrie Dooley from MJ Engineering come up as soon as we're finished. We can talk about this and wastewater at the same time, so she can address that. In addition, Part 5 lab testing was completed on those particular water supplies, so that's a standard that's utilized to test potable water. There was no exceedances of any state levels, and all of the wells are fully compliant with the New York State Department of Health standards, and then the Part 5 drinking water standards. Let me just touch base on sanitary sewer, and then we can have Carrie come up and talk about that. Currently, this site has a whole series of septic systems, and that's how the buildings are serviced with sanitary wastewater. There are 7 existing on-site septic systems. 3 of those will remain, and 4 of those will be abandoned, and we will utilize a centralized wastewater treatment plant that will be designed, and a speedies permit will be issued. We will propose a treatment system that's in accordance with all the New York State DEC regulations. And the plant type has not been fully fleshed out, no pun intended, but that type, it'll be designed for the flows and then the location of the discharge. So what all of that means is that we're coordinating with New York State DEC, which issues the permits for that discharge into the Crum Elbow Creek. They provided us with maximum flow and parameters on water quality, and then you work backwards and you design your system based on those permitted volumes and treatment quality.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we
So,
want-
so why don't we cover the screening? Well, we have to get to some discussion because we're gonna run out of time, and we need to decide on next
There's a lot
steps.
of information.
Yeah, there really is. If you could touch on the screening plan, and we're gonna have to skip over some stuff.
Okay, so I'm gonna let Henry Thomas just talk very, very quickly about how he designed the locations of the berms, the size of the berms, and the plantings that were proposed, because they're not simply just hills that we placed on a site. They were strategically located and designed, and then the plantings were selected, so I'll let him.
You just have to, as you've been hearing, you have to speak up. Maybe face them if you can.
that. Yeah, if you could
If you
just
face
speak a
them, because we
little
can probably hear you.
louder,
Okay,
Yeah.
so the screening that we show and the buffering that we've shown on the plans is really composed of two elements. One is earthwork in the form of soft and undulating and I'll call them irregular berms, as well as a very substantial amount of new landscape planting that is of varying types. So the idea, philosophically, in an overview sense, is to create, in a sense, a relatively deep and layered planting that emulates a natural wooded edge. So this occurs primarily on the other side of the existing wooded area along the stream corridor and then wraps around the south end of the site. And essentially, we've got like 4 different components in terms of vegetation. So there's an evergreen tree spine of the screen planting, and that is composed of a variety of different evergreen trees and at a variety of heights. So the heights that we've specified range from 8 to 9, 9 to 10, and 10 to 12. So those are fairly significant heights. But the idea is that we don't want it to, we're not trying to create a screen that looks like somebody screening a dumpster or a transformer with 10 arborvitaes that all look identical. We're trying to make it a composition of natural elements. So those evergreen trees will move. They're located on either side and at the crest of a series of landforms that my goal was to emulate glacial drumlins, sort of natural landforms, rather than an engineered dike kind of a form of a berm. You could make it look very linear, very sharp, very square. It's not good for anything.
Do you have the landscape, are you doing, do you have the, okay, thank you, sorry.
So our landforms in the first place are soft, and they sort of set the baseline of buffering. And then we've got the evergreen trees that are doing a lot of heavy lifting. Behind that, we've shown a lot of deciduous tree, large-scale shade tree planting. And then in front of the evergreen edge, we've got clusters of native deciduous and broadleaf evergreen shrubs. Again, the idea is that there is a lot going on in there visually. There's a lot of layers where the shrubs will do a lot of the work, between 0 and 6 to 8 feet high. The evergreen trees will do work above that. And really, upon installation, it's going to be a pretty heavy planting just from the start. The majority of that planting is native species. We did have a couple in there that are not native, but they're a relatively minor percentage, but that's something we'd look for some guidance on if there's any tolerance for something that's not native. The 2 trees one was a Colorado spruce that represented 5% of our evergreens, and then the other is a Western arborvitae, which is very similar to an eastern arborvitae, except that it's substantially taller. Both are very, very hardy, and both are very complementary to the plan. But if that was a non-starter, we could, work on some alternates for that. So that's a broad overview of that planting, and I think, anything else you could think of that I didn't throw out? And happy to answer
Yeah,
the question.
we wanted to present it.
Thank you.
And were you able to show the view shed? You're showing that? Okay. And we really, I think, you probably have a couple more comments, right, Alex? And then the board, so we just got just a minute, yeah.
So view shed, location number 1. Go one more. So I'm on slide 25.
Yep.
There we go. Okay. So at the October meeting, the board asked us to do some visual representation of what the site would look like from 2 locations to the south, and then 1 location along Route 9G. So if you're looking at slide 25, on the bottom of the plan, there's a little number 1, and that's the location that this view shed is taken from. There's a methodology that we provided you. I'm not going to go into the methodology of how this was done, but from this particular vantage point, if you look on the top right, there are partial views of 2 two-story cottages and a partial view of the 2-story cottage that's on the hill. And what I tried to do on the next sheet, Mr. Chairman, if you flip over, is those are the structures that are in play in those viewshed analysis. And we tried to place the arrows so you could see very, very limited views, mostly of rooftops, and heavily screened with the proposed landscaping. If you want to go to location number 2, which is along the same area on the south, and from this particular location, there's partial views of 2-story cottage, partial views of the wellness building, partial view of Kelly Barn, which is existing, and partial view of a 2-story cottage that's on the hill. And if you flip to the next page, there's representations of the renderings of what each of those buildings would look like. The predominant view in this area is the existing Kelly Barn, which again, we're not making any modifications to that other than some colors and materials. The third location is from the new proposed location for the new entrance drive. And I think I would be hard-pressed to say that you could see these buildings, but we just thought to err on the side of caution and label them. Partial view of the pool house and partial view of the Farm Hub building. And on the next page are the renderings of both of those buildings that we previously had provided you. So I think the overall theme is that on the 2 locations that we had provided to the south, there is heavily screened area between landscaping and buffer. We'd love to go through that in greater detail, but obviously we're short on time here. The location along 9G is heavily screened with existing vegetation. I mean, we know that that's heavily buffered and a dense area of vegetation between 9G and the project area.
Okay.
The last slides that we have just talk about the proposed programs, which we've gone through before with the board. There's just a list of the proposed programs and operationally some of the do's and don'ts of what we are and we aren't, just for clarification for the board. If you would like, we can entertain, I know we're short on time, to try to solicit some comments.
Yeah.
I might ask Mr. Chairman if there's a consideration that the board might consider doing a special meeting where we could continue this dialogue in a...
I think we're on the same page. Let me just say, for everybody who's listening, the presentation that's being referred to is going to be, is it online already, or we're going to?
It is not. We want
Yeah,
to
we're going to
start
put this online. So we've covered a lot of material, but we're going to put it online on the town website. You can look at it, go through it page by page. That's what we're going to be doing at our end. So if you missed something tonight, you'll have a chance to look at it again, and I agree that we need another meeting. Do you want to cover some stuff?
Yeah, I think, and as you say, you both say there's still a number of other smaller things, but I think maybe one of the big top line things is, we did an initial circulation to Dutchess County Planning. They responded that it wasn't complete. That's fine. We're working through that with them. But in general, the preliminary comment came back, and I'm paraphrasing, do you think the applicant could kind of scale it back a little bit So I don't know, I assume you got their letter and their comment, and I don't know if you've thought about that general preliminary comment from them, and if you have any thoughts about, their concern about just the overall scale of the project.
So we did receive their letter, yes, and I understand there was a resubmission that went back to county planning, so they're in the process of reviewing the application. I did have a discussion, oftentimes county planning communicates with the applicant directly, just to review some of the questions. I do believe that there was a misunderstanding on county planning's part as far as the amount of disturbance that's proposed on existing already disturbed land. And so I'll just respond to you and say that we await their comments back on the completed application showing all the landscaping and the lighting. And I'd like to respond to their comments when we receive them.
So I think, to Alex's point, we'd want to wait for their comments. Do they have the January 19?
They do.
Okay. And there was a reference to, they were going to do a site inspection?
Yeah.
Is that going to happen?
The
Or?
Commissioner of Planning emailed me and said that there was no need, that these plans were very, very detailed, and there was no need for them to do a site visit.
Okay.
So of course, if they do request that, Mr. Chairman, we'll coordinate that with your office.
Okay, and surveys, basically the Dutchess County Planning Department reviews projects like this, and that's what we're talking about, is that they will issue comments on the proposal, and that's one of the things we're going to factor into the review. Anyway, go ahead, sorry.
Well, again, there are a couple other things, and I suppose we should have a dialogue with our consultants, because I understand the applicant's position that some of these things are evolving, but there are some things that we're still kind of waiting for in order to be able to evaluate it and to have the public evaluate it. So I think we'll have to kind of figure that out in terms of where the line is between what more we need from the applicant to move forward and what we understand might be work in progress. I will note that there were, I guess the other, on the hit list, there were a couple other things in the special use permit requirements that I know that our consultant asked you for a narrative for, and you kind of said, well, we want to get comments on the site plan. And I guess my question is, or my comment is, the two seem to kind of work together, because I would imagine that some of the board's comments about the site plan might be dependent or driven by the narrative responses about, the items under the special use permit, like outdoor event area, noise control, hours of operation, things like that. So I do think it would be useful to get your narrative on that, rather than waiting, because, again, just to be repetitive, I think it will inform some of the review of the drawings themselves.
Hi, everyone. Just to respond, with some planning boards, it's customary to provide that kind of narrative at the end of the review once we have all the consultant reports back, because it's the conclusions in the report that are going to help you make your special use findings. If you want us to give you a preliminary narrative, we can certainly start that, but I think it's most helpful once we have an agreed upon traffic impact statement, county planning comments, we've gotten all your comments on the photometric plan, because small layouts and project changes end up changing the narrative at times.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm not sure I agree with you about that, but I know our consultants have asked for it, I think, a couple of times, and again, I think it would be useful. I appreciate that there could be things in the narrative that will be driven by the plan, but I think that there'll be things in a review of the plan that are going to be driven to, what you're proposing in terms of the narrative. So
I think in Victoria's defense, what we were trying to explain is, the last time that we were before you was October 3rd, and although we have had comments back from your consultants, we have not had comments back from this board. So tonight, we're looking for your comments. This is a back and forth, we like to work with you together, and so tonight we received your comments. We would like to receive your comments on this plan, and then based on that, we can reply accordingly with those special permit responses. So comment noted, and we'll provide those.
I think we understand it'll be a fluid
Yes.
document, but
Yep.
a big question I think a lot of people have is how is this going to be operated? So what are, what kinds of activities? You've given us an overview of that. I can see that.
Yes, yeah.
But more granular and more on the record, in terms of this is how it's going to operate. these are the activity, this is how people are going to come in and out, this is what people are going to be doing. One of the things that we require is, for the event space, is, a perimeter showing where the outdoor events are going to occur. I don't think we don't have that on the plan. And that may present definitional issues as to what is an outdoor event, but we need to, our code requires that. So, you may argue, well, that we don't know yet, but we need to see something along those lines. We obviously need another meeting, and at least part of it, needs to be a workshop, and we probably ought to schedule more time than we did this time. And we have a lot of open issues and things that you guys are going to do some things, and we're waiting on some comments from other people. Because we're running out of time, I just want to, in terms of scheduling, we could probably set something up in March, depending on your schedule. We can work on that offline, but that would be my thinking. We have 2 meetings in March. Maybe the second meeting in March, we could put you on for workshop. We could consider at that point, if we're in a position to circulate for seeker, we could set a public hearing. That would be my thought. I think we really want the Dutchess County Planning comments, if we can get them before that workshop, and any other comments that we're going to get from, consultants and things. So, I throw that out. I don't know how the board feels about it.
Well, we would ask that we could please have you consider putting us on that first meeting agenda. We were hoping tonight, again, the last time that we've been for you was October 3rd. So we're hoping tonight that this was the opportunity for us to roll up our sleeves and have a traditional workshop setting where we have the plans in front of you and we can go over the detailed site plan. So to the extent
I think what I've learned is we need more than an hour. That's the first thing. And
if you would
I just don't know if that's enough time to get everything we need. Go ahead, Jack.
I don't know about anybody else, but I would not personally have a problem. We can find a time to pick a non-regularly scheduled date and devote significant time to this. I think it requires it.
Can we communicate on that, and on maybe, I think to that point, maybe we pick an off day. We pick it not a meeting day, and then we can give you 2 hours.
That would be
And
helpful.
if you're following this, either in the room or at home, these meetings will be posted, there'll be agendas posted online, and they'll be in this room, we'll televise them, and, we'll go from there, but we have more to discuss. This was really, we're reacquainting ourselves with this project. I think you're right. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And we just didn't get enough done tonight, so,
And perhaps between now and that, whenever we figure out what that meeting is, if the board could provide us individually or collectively with any additional comments so that we.
I think that would be the focus next time of, we didn't really get a chance to do that.
Agree.
So,
Can I just add
yeah.
one, maybe observation, and this is kind of to Alex's narrative point, is that I think getting some of this data but putting it in context would be helpful. So like the traffic study, when we say 240 cars over 24 hours, I assume that doesn't mean 10 cars, right, every hour. So to understand, right, when check-in, check-out times are,
Exactly.
deliveries are scheduled, to really know what that impact means. I think, and it's just an example, right, but putting all the kind of numbers in context, so it's not just like how many gallons of water, but what does that actually mean, and same thing with traffic.
Yes, I agree. I think if we had more time, we
Yeah.
have all of our consultants here, they were all ready to speak tonight.
Oh, sorry.
So we will have them come to the next meeting and they can, we had discussed how to approach that tonight, particularly your traffic questions. We didn't get to your traffic question. So
Yeah, I think we'll have our consultants, and they'll face off against your consultants, and, it will be a long meeting, and, but at least we'll have enough time. We don't have to use this full 2 hours, but
Purposeful.
it'll be but I think that's the way to go, because we can't do it tonight. And to the members of the public, I thank you. Let me just say, we're gonna wrap up the workshop. But before I forget, I want to just say I very much appreciate your respectful attention, and I know everybody else up here does too. So, and we're looking forward to the future meetings and also the hearings when we get to hear from you. And but again, it's very much appreciated. that you sat through this respectfully, and, yeah.
One clarification, I just want to make sure that we are both communicating the same
Yeah.
thing. You had mentioned that you wanted to circulate for seeker. Just a point to remember is that the board did circulate for lead agency.
We did declare lead, exactly.
So 30 days have come and passed, so by.
We are
default,
lead
the
agency,
planning board is
for better or
lead
worse,
agency,
yeah.
correct, yeah.
And, you know, we may have, well, okay. So I think we should work out a date, and it may be an off day, to Jack's point,
We will make ourselves available.
and we'll, you know, we can sort of set it up in a way that it works for everybody, and we can start to work on that.
Okay.
And your patience is appreciated as well, and thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you all for coming, and I'm sorry you didn't all get a chance to speak, but you will next time.
Thank you.
So, thank you. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. Brandon, can you go off audio?
It's on here. I got it on here.
Brenda, you can put the mic.
I got it. All right, we're going to start our regularly scheduled programming, meeting of the Town of Clinton Planning Board. We have a few things taken off the agenda. We're going to start with the Brown area variance for a shed, followed by the Brown wetlands permit. Our chairman has recused himself, so I will be filling in for the purposes of the variance and the wetlands permit application. Is the applicant here for 99 Willow Lane? You want to come up, please?
The microphone.
Well, do you want to sit down? No, but you can move the microphone down to the table.
No, they can hear you from the TV.
So if you would introduce yourself and tell us about this variance request and the wetlands application.
Sure. My name is F.D. Schilling. I'm married to Lindsay Brown, who owns the property. So I'm here on our behalf, proposing a shed, and we need it's a tool shed for personal use. The property is unusual because it's narrow, long and narrow in shape, which makes it difficult to stay within the existing code on both sides of the property. So in other words, if we move to the rear border, we're a little bit more out of sight and further into the woods, so to speak, but we're closer to our neighbor's property line. And if we move closer to the street, we have very little space there as well. So my initial proposal was for 35 feet of 35-foot variance on the rear. But after discussion with people here in the town, I would happily go to 50, and Russ came out and looked. I don't know if Russ is here. And we looked at what 50 would mean, which basically puts it dead center. So it may say 35 on the top of the application, but it's actually 50. That was an early request, and then there was further discussion after that. My thinking was it would be a little bit more concealed if it was a little bit closer to the rear, but that just increases the variance request. So happy to defer.
All right, thanks, Alex.
Sure. So there's, I guess, a couple questions, issues, maybe things to let the rest of the board be aware of. First thing is my question to you. So now you're asking for a 50-foot variance.
Yeah.
Does that still put the location of the shed within the wetlands buffer?
The wetlands buffer, if I'm not mistaken, is how much?
50 feet from the edge of the wetlands.
Yeah, so we're far from that at that point.
Yeah?
Well, you can look at the map.
It didn't quite look that way to me,
Okay.
but I didn't see a measurement.
Well, maybe far isn't like
Well, and
accurate way to say it.
And I want to be clear, right, just so, and Justin, if I'm stepping on your toes, right, all the planning board does at this point is make a recommendation to the zoning board about the area variance, so I'm not asking my question necessarily in connection with the wetlands permit that we're going to talk about next, right?
Okay.
I'm just asking because it might affect the other board members' thoughts about whether to, what they should tell the planning board about the variance. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So, so again, do you think, would the shed then be within the buffer or not, even with the 50-foot variance?
Within the
Do you know?
50-foot variance, we should be clear of that without any issue.
Okay.
And again, if there was a few feet, then I'm happy to defer to the assessment of the group. But I have positioned it where I think I'm within.
Yeah, so if they grant the variance and you come back, I think we'll just need to see a map, showing
Okay.
the detailed location with respect to the wetlands buffer.
Would we be able to confirm that at a later date again, or?
I mean, I think really it would be, you would kind of bear the burden of showing us a measurement,
Yeah.
but I just want you to understand that.
Okay, again, I think we're okay if we look at it right now where it is.
Yeah.
Actually, just obviously this is partial access, but this is the edge of the wetlands.
Yeah.
Approximately the shed's going, that's 50 feet.
50 feet?
There.
Okay.
So it is pretty close.
Okay, so Jeff seems to think it would be, again, as you say, maybe no more than a couple of feet. I think maybe the bigger issue is, there's been so this would be the third accessory structure on the site, which is permitted, but there seems to be a question about the use. There was a complaint made. I think everyone on the board got notice of a complaint that was made about the use of the barn, which is not really within the planning board's purview, right? That's an enforcement issue. But I think the question is, what is this tool shed being used for, and is it connected with the use of the barn?
I'm pretty clueless as to what the complaint would be with the barn. We've been, if there's a complaint, I would definitely deal with that separately, because I have no idea what the issue is there. We've gone through the process extensively with being in compliance, and we worked really hard to make sure that the barn is it was a dilapidated barn that was falling down. It's 240 years old. We saved the barn. I personally put a fortune of my own hard-earned money into making that barn and kept the old structure, which was no small feat, let me tell you. But be that as it may, its use since then is, I am myself, I'm a designer, so I use a portion of the barn to work out of. And the rest of the barn is an open space. We periodically, my wife shows artists their work. I think Russ said I was thinking that was a good example of what we're using it for. If you have a painting or a piece of artwork and you're not sure, we're in the business of helping people look at it and assess if it's of value or not. Usually it's not. And then we show it in the barn, so people come over and look at the barn. But it's that's it. And there's no event-related things that are no for-profit event, I should say.
Yeah.
We do have entertained guests that come.
Okay.
So maybe if there was a complaint, it would be like us having friends over to look at artwork or something like that, and being misinterpreted. But again, I have no idea. I'm like,
To paraphrase the complaint, right, it's that the barn is being used for a commercial enterprise, which is this art showing business, gallery business, that there's public hours where you could come over.
there are not public hours.
There's hours, again, I take no position on this, but they provided the website. On the website, I clicked on it, it says you can come over during certain times and come see the gallery.
Correct. Both of us work on the property, and we don't want people just walking on the property without us knowing. And if they want to look at a piece of artwork, we would, in that case, set up an appointment, allow them to come in on site and look, just like we would entertain a guest. But thank you for clarifying, because I had no.
I can add that Lindsay Brown is the property owner.
Yes.
She and I have been in communication about how that building has been used and what her necessary paths are to come into compliance. So that is an ongoing conversation with Lindsay that FD has not been involved with.
So is she out of compliance today or in compliance today?
We don't know. Currently, in terms of being in compliance, it's about what is the existing use of the building. And right now, except for some things online, there's nothing that says that it is an active art gallery that people are able to go to. So I can't say that it is an active violation, but it's in the process of being investigated, and she's been cooperative.
And the use of the tool shed is to put tools in? I mean, maybe you could expand a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Because the barn, as I just described, is a space, it's a clean walls, you know, like,
Yeah.
I have a small area where I keep some garden tools, and I'm just running out of space, unfortunately. I can't keep them all in there anymore.
And there's no place else on the site that you'd be able to locate it that would be within
it's
the...
a pretty narrow spot. We have gardens that I'm a designer and I design gardens, so you know, the areas in the back are all finished gardens, and this seemed like the most natural spot to do it, as long as we can do it in compliance and do it within the variance. It seemed like the least amount of impact on the neighborhood as well.
Alex, as far as I saw this year, the application was fairly incomplete.
Oh, really?
As far as and this probably would alleviate a lot of problems, that your plot plan, you didn't have one. And in that plot plan, they asked for existing buildings, distances to boundaries, existing wells, waste facilities, surrounding properties, owners' names, all accessory structures with their square footage. If that would have been drawn to scale, we would have had a better idea where this building...
You didn't get a drawing?
I didn't get a drawing.
Oh, we have drawings.
All I got was the overhead photograph of the property.
I can give you one here, but right now...
But anyone else?
On the previous, it's on the previous one, because remember, this was originally from the one before.
But this is not, that doesn't show me anything.
It was, is that the one you're talking about?
You're looking for a bird's eye view, not an isometric.
I don't know, I didn't have any of that information.
I got plenty of these.
And that would have kind of...
This gives you a better kind of bird's eye view of where everything is.
Yeah, well, this was submitted?
Before, yes, not that big. Do I have that?
You have
I
this?
think I have that. I don't think I have that.
I don't have
Whatever
I didn't
you
want to
gave.
overwhelm with material, you know.
But this is what,
But that is,
kind of what we needed.
Yeah, you didn't give me that.
well, I certainly gave three
Okay.
of those to different people. I'm sorry if you didn't get one.
Yeah, no, it would have,
Yeah, you're supposed to give me whatever, and then they get it, 8 copies. of
you want to see
everything.
where everything is here.
So,
So the shed is in the little bit, there's no septic or anything, but you can see, actually, if you like, I'm going to show you where the rest of the property
Yeah, that,
is marked. I mean, so there's septic over here, and there's a septic in front of the house, just further down.
What's the other, what's the second septic for?
There was an old septic in here, and there was one here when we got the house.
There's one for the barn, this the barn?
There's one here, and there was one back here.
Which is the one for the house?
Right here in front of the house.
Over here?
Yeah.
And is the other one being used?
Not to my knowledge, but it was, you know, we hit it when we tried to dig back there. So, but this over here is where we're, I'm having trouble seeing.
just as point of, this was
Alex,
emailed to us on
look
January 11th.
Uh-huh. Oh, are there any bathrooms in the barn?
No.
And a shed here, nothing, I mean, or that's the proposed shed?
No.
The proposed shed is
Well,
here.
So this is the house?
Yes.
And this is the art gallery place?
That's the
Yep.
barn.
And then
That's
what's
right. That's what do you call it, an accessory building, cottage. It was a old hunting
What is it now?
lodge. It's now being used as office space.
And then what is the purpose, I guess, of the driveway to the tool shed?
Well, right now I have no way to access without coming through here. So all of anything that I'm doing, any work-related activities that I'm doing are right on the street. And you can see there's no room for parking. So we were just looking for a way to kind of come in without disturbing blocking the street. I routinely have people coming over, guys that work for me, and parking out here. So I'm trying to create a way that I can just kind of get in and out.
so this driveway doesn't exist yet?
Well, it
is, I mean-
they started, So the gravel is down, there was a lot of clearing that was done, and the gravel is down, but they proceeded without the permit. That's the second item on the
Yep.
agenda, is the wetlands permit for the
Okay.
driveway.
That's what got us to this point, was that they had started the work and we issued a stop work order and they started getting the permit.
Okay.
Yep. So, hopefully that helps. You can have it.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you need to put this in the...
Yeah, can I get this? 'Cause, I don't
Sure.
know.
Arlene, that was
Jeff
emailed
says we
to us in
have it.
January 11th.
Huh?
That was
January
emailed to
11th.
us in
So
January.
then you must
I
have
didn't mean to
get
trip
an
you. I just
account.
wanted,
no,
that wasn't all on here.
No, you should.
The original submission, remember this was on the agenda from the previous meeting?
Okay.
Then you should have this on before, not the recent one.
Okay.
The original pack, the previous packet.
Well-
Right, you have this?
We get a lot
Give
of,
me your email, I can email it.
we get a lot of paper.
Yeah. So again, I think the, for right now, for this agenda item, right, it's just a recommendation to the zoning board of appeals. So,
Yes.
I don't know if you want me to go ahead and make a motion, or, so, I would propose a motion, I'm sorry, I didn't write it up in advance, I propose a motion for the board to make a recommendation to the zoning board of appeals, I think for a neutral recommendation. And the reason I would propose a neutral recommendation is that I think that they're, I'm sorry, I'm doing a bad job on the fly. Do you want me to go through the items? and
Maybe
talk through it?
before you do a motion, maybe just talk through.
That's fine,
Let's
okay.
do that.
So the criteria, right, are whether there's an undesirable change produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. I think that the location, the applicant's trying to mitigate that as best as possible with the location. That doesn't seem to be a particular issue. Whether the benefit sought by the applicant may be achieved by some other method other than an area variance. And I understand the applicant's, I understand your points that it's a narrow lot, but there seems to be a lot of other space on the other end of the property that's clear and open, so.
To speak directly to your point, if you look at that drawing, please observe, if you can find a spot where we would not need a variance, hats off. It's the width of the property is 160 feet. The length of the property is about 600, 650, something like that. So, in other words, what that means is if you try to put a structure anywhere, there's the barn, right? There's the house. We would, to follow your line of thinking, then we would need to put it either on one side of those structures, which would actually put us right where we are right now. So all I'm doing is proposing that we extend it into this unused, which by the way was being used as a dump for unauthorized material being dumped in this area. So just to speak to when we were stopped, when the stop work order happened, we had literally just cleaned the entire area of refuse and materials that had been dumped there because the place looked so bad. So once again, not only have we poured an enormous amount of time and energy into saving the barn, but now we're saving the adjacent property from becoming this dilapidated mess. In addition, I'm kind of expert on the native plants that are supposed to be there. Poison ivy had been the predominant cultivar that was taking over the trees. So what I do is, personally, I make a living improving properties for people, and I certainly care as much as anyone could about the character and quality, first and foremost, of the property. My living is centered around maintaining the character of what we see up here in the Hudson Valley. So I build stone walls, dry stack stone walls. I bring in native plants. I know which plants do well under different conditions, and I can tell you that what we had there was a mess. So what I've done is repair that so far. And now we're here building a structure, so of course, then, we figure out where that would be. But it's a shed, it's a tool shed, it's a garden shed. It's not there's no electric, no water, nothing. We're putting tools in there.
Okay, so, again, the criteria for an area variance are whether there would be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method, whether the requested area variance is substantial, whether the proposed variance would have an adverse effect on the physical and environmental conditions in the neighborhood, and whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. And I think that I would propose that the responses on those criteria would be that it would not produce an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, that the benefits sought can be achieved by some other method, that the requested area variance is not substantial, that the proposed variance would not have an adverse effect on the physical conditions of the neighborhood, provided that it's outside the wetlands buffer, and that the alleged difficulty is self-created, but that should not be held against the applicant in making the determination. And based on my review of those criteria, I would move that we provide a neutral recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Sorry, can I get a second?
Please.
Discussion. How do we take into it, when we're talking about undesirable change, right, to the neighborhood, right? Sometimes we have people come in and say, yep, I got my neighbor's letter approving this, or there's silence. What do we do when there's major objection, right? And someone's saying, I'm the neighbor, I think this is an undesirable change to our neighborhood. And I was also contacted by that neighbor on the other side asking a similar question.
Yeah, exactly. We have, so the complaint was generated by purportedly a coalition of neighbors, right? So Justin, I think your question's a good one. I mean, ordinarily, right, that would be handled in a public hearing, but, for the planning board purposes, we don't have a procedure to hold a public hearing on this kind of application, but the ZBA does, so. That might be.
I guess maybe my suggestion is to say style on the point and say we are unable to determine whether this would cause an undesirable change, right? We have complaints from the neighbors, we have the statement here, and just not take a position on it.
That's fine.
Sorry, so there's a motion on the table, so
Are the neighbors saying that the shed causes an undesirable condition? I thought their letter, which I only read once, was much more about the use of the barn rather than this particular shed.
I think they're a little bit related in that if there's an impermissible use and you're asking for another structure in a driveway, it's totally possible that both of those things are somehow related to what may or may not be an impermissible use. And so, right, to take them in isolation is to do a disservice to, I think, that their entire argument.
I see your point. I see your point. Well, my thought is it's only a recommendation. The ZBA will do what they want to do with this.
Sure.
And we should just move the process along.
Sure.
That's fine, so I could amend my motion to say that on the first point, we were unable at this point to make a determination about whether there'd be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, but that's still with a neutral recommendation.
Fine.
Okay. Any other discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? All right.
Okay.
Item two, still, back to the wetlands.
So the second item is your application for a wetlands permit, and I think we've heard a little bit more from you about the project already, but if you want to go ahead and maybe describe, the application for the wetlands permit has to do with the driveway, so maybe if you could just talk, which you did already, but maybe give us a little bit more information just about the driveway
I'm trying to speak to
aspect.
both of those things since you just brought up this letter, which this is the first that's been brought to my attention. I haven't seen the letter or read it, so I don't really, would it be possible to retrieve that?
You need to foil, we just got it this weekend.
Okay, so just,
It's a lawyer's.
I read the letter, I'm just amazed.
Yeah.
You have to foil for a letter about your application.
No, that was a complaint. What is it, what are you asking, the complaint from the neighbor?
Who wants
right?
this? Who wants
it's a
this?
letter that
Yeah.
I have not seen, so.
Yeah, I just got it over the weekend.
Okay. We will review, and if we can provide it to you, we will let you know, and if it requires you to take an additional step, we will let you know that too.
Okay. It seems only fair that I would be able to see a letter that's complaining about, so.
Well, this was, the best way to do that is call request.
Well-
It's through the.
Well, I would want to be able to address the complaint, obviously, if there's a neighbor that's.
Well, I'm sure
Well,
they're
and I
gonna
will-
talk.
Yeah, and I will tell you that for purposes of discussion of the wetlands permit tonight,
Yeah.
to be completely blunt, the letter really is kind of,
A moot point.
yeah,
Okay.
so, right, the process, to give you a little preview of the process, depending on the discussion, probably is it okay? Do you mind?
Please.
Probably the most we're going to do tonight is refer it out to our consultants, set up an escrow for the town's engineer to be able to review the application, refer it out to other interested agencies, declare ourselves lead agent for seeker, and then you're going to have to come back after we get our engineer's comments. So at that point, right, I would assume that there'll be more clarity on the complaint, maybe we even have a chance to read it. But even to the extent that the complaint addressed the installation of the driveway, which it doesn't, right? We're not
Did I
really going to
understand
be
you
talking about
correctly-
the substance of that
Did I understand you
tonight.
correctly that you're gonna need to get engineers and consultants to review the position?
The driveway, yes.
Oh, the driveway.
Or the driveway.
Driveway.
We're talking about the driveway now.
Okay.
The wetlands permit is for the driveway. And on the wetlands permit, yes, right? So it's very typical for the planning board to have our town engineer review those wetlands permits, to get a professional engineering opinion to inform the planning board on the effect
This is
of the
astonishing,
wetlands.
I'm sorry, because directly across the street, we had a pickleball court put in just several months ago, right next to the stream, and directly across the street from us with no oversight whatsoever.
It could very well be that they should have applied for a wetlands permit. I
Right,
don't know.
but-
that This is not an enforcement board, unfortunately, so.
Okay, well, all right, I'm just trying to, it's mind-boggling to me that, that what I'm doing is drawing so much, you said there's a letter from a group, I mean.
Well, again, the letter does not address the installation of the driveway per se, and it really doesn't affect our conversation at all about the driveway and the wetlands permit tonight. And I will tell you again, there's another wetlands permit on the agenda for tonight. You can stay for that. That was also sent out for engineering comments. That's the standard practice of this board.
All right.
We're lay people, and for those kinds of environmental issues in particular, we rely on the town's consultants
understand.
to inform us.
Okay. It does feel as if I'm being singled out. Again, the entire property, just, the barn is 240 years old, was falling down when we got there. The same thing is true for the accessory structure, which was apparently a hunting lodge. So both of those buildings, and I have pictures and, were falling down, and we rebuilt the property from the ground up, including saving the original structure, the barn itself, which was built, with no nails, so we had to bring guys in that could do that kind of work to save the core elements of the barn, meaning the, what do you call that style of woodwork, with post and beam, but, with no nails. So, I mean, this was no small operation for me anyhow. And it's disheartening that after doing that kind of work on the property, that we have neighbors complaining. I mean, honestly, the barn is now a fabulous improvement to the entire street. And this was money that I worked for many years to be able to do, seeing that, that what was happening. In fact, it was I considered it a hazard, a danger, if kids were to be playing in there, because it was, anyhow. So that's where we are. In my view, us being focused on when we're doing all this work to improve the property. But be that as it may, I understand that you want to get engineers and consultants, and that you need that in order to get.
And just to go back to, I think, the original point, set aside, right, there's no complaint, any wetlands permit before us would get referred out to engineers, would come back before us, right? It's a two-step process, so that has nothing to do with anything. Every single wetlands permit before this board is going to go through the exact same process you're going through.
It's got my attention.
I understand.
Yeah, so, all right, so I'm sorry to interrupt,
No, I wanted you to tell us a little bit more about the driveway. I mean, I think I understand, right? So you want to put this shed in to have some garden tools, and the purpose of the driveway is to get to the shed where there was no other access. But if there's more that you want to tell them.
I'll tell you, because he came over to the property twice this week, I don't know if he's here. But in order to access the property, in order to access this area where the shed is, you walk through some pretty swampy area. So, that's all it is. It's just so that we can get in unobstructed and not have mud and things like that hampering our ability to bring a wheelbarrow in and pull some tools out.
Yeah. And I think everyone in the town appreciates, people improving their properties and investing in their properties, and that's, I would imagine many of us on the board have, and many people in the town have, and we all appreciate that. For purposes of the wetlands permit, right, our charge is to protect those swampy areas. So, right, so that's all we're trying to do. You're definitely not being singled out. This is just the typical process.
And as a professional, I deal with drainage issues and water issues constantly. So I can assure you that there are no, we're not impeding drainage in that area in any way. We're not hampering its ability for water to come in and go away. We're not building on top of the pre-existing wetlands or as far as I can tell, we're far enough away from them. But that doesn't mean it's not muddy everywhere in that whole area. So we're just trying to make it a little bit more manageable.
Okay. I did notice, so you have essentially two access points to Willow Road. It's essentially like a circular driveway, a loop, right? So have you talked to the highway department about, those access points?
Well, they have come out and looked, but when we talked to them, they basically stopped and said we have to talk to
us first.
Talk to us first before we go too far. That they can't really review it further until, and there seemed to be a lot of questions about all of that, but we couldn't deal with it yet.
Alex, they did come to me to ask about the 2 points of connection to the road, and we have not found anything yet in the code that doesn't allow for that. That was Highway's question about the
okay.
So far.
And I guess my last comment, which I think I already know the answer to, the wetlands permit, the wetlands section of the code is even a little bit more restrictive than, say, area variances about there being possible other locations. But I think should I assume that your answer on the area variance is the same that you would give us here, that there's that from your point of view, there's no other reasonable place on the property
We can't go forward or backward anywhere on the property, to my knowledge, without needing a variance. And that would be...
right, two different issues.
You're speaking only to the wetlands.
Well, only to the wetlands, right? Is there a way you can move the driveway to move it out of the wetlands buffer?
Mm-hmm. Is there a way to move the driveway?
Is there a way to move the driveway so that it's outside of the wetlands buffer, right? There's supposed to be a 50-foot buffer between the wetlands and any structure. Your proposed driveway is within the buffer. That's the whole reason we're here. So is there any way for you to put the driveway so it's outside the buffer?
It would be very challenging to do that. To be blunt. I mean, it's the short answer.
Okay.
It's a steep drop from the street. So in order to build any access road of any sort, you need to extend that long enough that the drop is less. So it's as tight as I can think of to the street without it becoming a cliff and not really safe.
Are there any other questions before I make a motion? All right. So I would make a motion that the planning board declare itself lead agency for seeker review for this unlisted action, that we establish an escrow in the amount of $1,000, $500?
500?
This for the engineer?
That we establish an escrow in the amount of $500 for the town's engineer to review the application, that we refer the application to the CAC, to the highway department. Do we refer this to the highway department or not?
I think so.
Not for the wetlands permit, I
No?
don't think, because their purview really is only the apron, the connection point. They don't do anything with the driveway.
They don't do anything.
What about the site distance from the other driveway?
That'll be for the driveway permit, which is.
Separate.
Yeah.
Separate.
Yeah.
Is this a type 1 action, or does this require?
Unlisted. I checked.
Require what?
I triple checked.
So do we have to do the secret review?
Yeah. we always
For
do the
unlisted
wetlands.
action, yeah.
Only type 1 is excluded. Or type
Type 2 is
Type 2 is
excluded.
excluded. Sorry, I'm like, one of them
It's a
excluded.
variance, that's a.
Type 1 is really,
Yes.
really big.
Yeah, I got
Type
it.
2 is really, really small. Everything else is in the middle, yeah.
And this is in the middle.
And this is unlisted, yeah. So, is there anyone, I don't think there's anyone else we'd refer
What
now
about
to,
BC
just the
planning? What
CAC.
about BC planning? Not just county planning. Yeah.
For
special.
wetlands?
Have to check.
They won't do anything with it.
Fine, send it to
Then we
them.
refer to them as well.
What about fire department?
No.
I think that's with the driveway permit. That's not really, does
Yeah,
not
not
affect the
wetlands.
wetlands, yeah.
You didn't say DEC, right?
I did not say DEC.
And because in this case, they would not be involved. They've been out.
It's a
doing that
local
site,
wetlands,
it's
yeah.
local.
DC has been out,
Right, yeah.
Okay, so I so move.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
So you'll have to give Arlene a check for $500 for the deposit, and then the engineer might come out to take a look. They might be in touch with you. And when we get the engineer's comments, you'll have a chance to respond, and then we'll get you on the agenda as quickly as we can once we get those comments back.
Okay.
Are you on the agenda next, or this coming Thursday?
All right.
With the ZBA.
For the zoning board of appeals.
Garden shed gets pushed down.
All right, thank you.
Huh?
Do you have this?
What else do I have?
Do you have this? Alex?
Do you have this?
I might, I got,
No, well, let me keep that. I'll send you the digital.
Are you going away?
I'm going away.
Okay.
Paul's coming back, and I'm going away.
Musical chairs, I love it.
Cheers.
Fantastic.
Where were you waiting? Where were you waiting?
That's the chair of Excel right there.
Oh, over here, I can stay in the room.
I'm not going outside.
The lawyer's gone, so you can stay in the room.
I gave you the,
I'm in the broken chair.
I gave you the broken chair. Thanks. Wasn't about to get to hit that one again.
It's a lawyer thing. You know how
Okay.
Yeah, but you don't get to sit on it.
Why would we not make that?
Just to be on the safe side, just give me the thing and I'll do.
You're more on a
You West
dangerous
Scott,
side
right?
not giving it to someone.
Oh, do you have a laptop? Are you gonna?
No,
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Just a reminder on the mic. I think you're good if you're right, yeah, or that's fine.
Okay, do you want me to review the whole project again, or just?
We just need a review, it's been a little while, so we need a little refresher.
This is West 438 Hibernia, and it's a rear lot, so we had requested an area variance. We needed to be 50% from 100 to the lot, which is 100 feet, and we are less than 50 feet. We're at 38, so that was the area variance.
Okay.
And we also needed a wetlands permit because the entire existing house is already within the buffer. And they're putting an addition here of a master bathroom, taking off the existing front porch and filling it in that void with the master bathroom. We're adding a small mudroom entry porch over here on the side and expanding the existing porch and enclosing it to become a kitchen over here.
Let me just say, accordingly, you don't need a variance, so that's Jeff's determination, so it's just wetlands permit.
Just wetlands permit. So, what we are requesting that this be considered insignificant because we're so high above the stream, which is where the wetlands is,
Right.
that it's going to be very hard to have any impact on it, and with being that high up, it makes it somewhat irrelevant.
Okay. So we had comments from the CAC, we had comments from CPL, and then you responded, right, to CPL's?
Yes.
We don't have that.
You didn't respond, right?
Yeah, it was in an email traffic, but I don't have it in the folder.
Is this latest afternoon? I'm sorry, I had a late,
I don't know, it was a while ago.
a while ago?
Yeah. And that's when we got the appointment.
It's not in the packet?
It's on the front page.
Here. Oh, wow.
Here it is. This wasn't in the folder. I wasn't imagining it, it was actually somewhere here.
Yeah, I got it already.
Sure it wasn't in there? Yeah. You want one, Jeff?
You want me to read through the response?
Wait, dude.
No, is there anything outstanding that hasn't been addressed? I don't think so.
I think it's the fire department, but you said
Sorry.
it's already in there anyway.
Yeah, because we're not.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything to the driveway or the
Yes.
parking?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that sounds like,
Okay,
yeah, go.
All right. Resolution of the Planning Board of the Town of Clinton for approval of the Westcott 438 LLC wetlands permit, whereas Westcott 438 LLC has applied for a wetlands permit in order to build additions and enlarge a deck within a controlled wetlands area and/or buffer zone on Hibernia Road in the Town of Clinton, parcel number ending 651080, whereas Section 250-78 of the Town of Clinton zoning law provides that an applicant must submit for Planning Board review and approval a proposed site plan in connections with a wetlands permit. Applicant has submitted such a site plan, whereas a short form environmental assessment form has been submitted. The planning board declared itself lead agency and issued a negative declaration on December 5th, 2023.
Did we?
I don't know. I think I have to do that first tonight. No?
Yeah, because we haven't, I don't think we've done that.
The what? No, we just did the lead agency.
We just did lead agency.
You have to do
All right,
short
sorry.
form, that's
Okay,
right.
okay.
All right, sorry. I meant to print out, you have a short form? Let's start over.
It's a problem, I don't.
I need to do two of them tonight.
No, I don't, I forgot about that. Can you read on?
I can.
Online?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can try to pull it up if,
And we could fill it up actually online.
I'm sorry. I know I forgot a piece of paper. Isn't it attached if someone has a secret filing?
the internet.
I know, it's gotta be in here.
Yeah, you could fill it up too.
Got it. All right.
So sorry, it's dying, so you could fill it up too.
All right, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of this existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a CEA? Okay, all these are no or small. Will the proposed action result in adverse change to the existing level of traffic or infrastructure? No or small. Will the action cause an increase in use of energy, fails to incorporate reasonably available energy opportunities? No or small. Will it impact public-private water supplies, public-private wastewater treatment? No or small. Will the action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No or small. Will it result in an adverse change to natural resources? No or small. Will the proposed action result in an increase for the potential of erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No or small. Will it create an action, will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. I'll make a motion to make a negative declaration under SECRA.
Somebody second, did you second? Okay, so the motion is, right, the board's finding there's not going to be any significant adverse environmental impacts by the proposed action, as a result of the proposed action. Does everybody agree with that?
Yep. Aye.
Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
Sorry. I'm going to go back to the paragraph I left off on in my previous motion. Whereas a completed short form in EAF has been submitted, the planning board declared itself lead agency for this unlisted, uncoordinated action, and the planning board issued a negative declaration for purposes of Article 8 of the Environmental Conservation Law on February 20th, 2024. Whereas the planning board has considered the items enumerated in section 25078G of the town code, the planning board has reviewed responses with respect to the application from Mark Long at CPL Architecture and the CAC, and no other comments were received, whereas the planning board has concluded that the proposed regulated activity is consistent with the town's policy to preserve, protect, and conserve wetland, watercourse, and water body functions, and the benefits derived therefrom, whereas the requested permit for the proposed regulated activity is at least as restrictive as would result under application of the Freshwater Wetlands Act of the State of New York, whereas the planning board has concluded that with respect to the specific facts of this application, the public health and safety will not be threatened by the proposed action, whereas the proposed regulated activity cannot practicably be relocated on site to eliminate or reduce the intrusion into the wetland, watercourse, or water body adjacent thereto, because the expansion areas are connected to the existing house and are at least as far from the wetland areas as existing portions of the house, whereas the wetlands permit is otherwise in compliance with the requirements of the Town of Clinton zoning law and consistent with the Town of Clinton comprehensive plan. Now therefore be it resolved, the planning board hereby grants approval of the requested wetlands permit, conditioned upon, one, the payment of all fees.
Second? Discussion? Anything? Discussion? All good? Aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. That wasn't too bad, right? So, I think I said that last time. So you still need a building permit, right?
Yes, definitely. That's the reason why you're here, because you got denied, yes.
So you still need to get, the regular building
Yeah,
permits,
yeah,
but you have the wetland permit and you don't need the variance.
Great.
So you don't have to come back here.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you very much. Excellent presentation. Scheinberg, 133 Old Bull's Head Road. This is a soil erosion and sediment control permit and steep slopes permit. 133 Old Bull's Head Road. Hey.
Oh, welcome back.
How are you? Just remind us who you are and then, and yeah.
My name is Carl Hansen with River Architects, representing our client. As you noted, we're here for soil erosion and sediment control permit and steep slopes permit.
Yours too.
You referred us to the town engineer, received his comments back. We provided a response to those items, some of which have now been resolved. However, you did provide another response letter as of last Thursday. We have not addressed it yet. So our civil engineer has a scheduled meeting with Mark Long, CPL, scheduled for this Thursday to discuss the remaining of that. And our main desire or resolution to get tonight just to see if the engineer's comments are the only remaining item for us to address, if the board would consider giving us a conditional approval once we've resolved his comments, so that we would come back to another meeting.
Sure. And for the board's benefit, I can kind of summarize what I think are the open comments, and you tell me if I'm right, but basically one was to do some, and I'm kind of going to tie in RR Orchard, which had a similar one, but a pre-inspection or spot inspections as they're ongoing to make sure that the plan is being implemented and working. One comment was about the potential for a bond, which I want to discuss. One is to meet with the West Clinton Fire Department and confirm it works for emergency access. And then the other handful of 4 or 5, I think, are more technical about the various grades, use of gravel. Some things need to go on a map that I think are all pretty straightforward. So,
Comment, sorry.
Sure, yeah, please.
I can comment on the West Clinton Fire Department. I met with the fire chief on Thursday as well when I dropped off hard copies.
Yes.
I believe he may have only.
He did. Did you circulate that, or?
Yes, did I? I don't remember. Got so much stuff going on right now.
And I believe his comments were that he would approve as designed with, follow-up on site to be sure we met grade.
I thought I did.
Right, the issue is the 20% grade, right?
Right.
Yeah, we're not quite at 20% on much of that early portion of the driveway, but I think this is part of what we'll discuss with the town engineer, or our civil engineer will discuss as well.
And the issue that I'm not really prepared for tonight was when we did the initial referral, it was for the wetlands permit, a soil and erosion and sediment control plan, moderately steep slopes permit, and TBD whether they needed an extremely steep slope special use permit. And I'm looking at Jeff to figure out what his determination was on that front.
Yeah, I think it's the extreme slopes because there's, the area of extreme slope is large enough, it's greater than the 10,000 square foot area, and there is some impact within that.
Okay, so that means it's a special use permit procedure.
Yeah, I'm looking for.
Which is something else.
So we would
I'm
just.
not prepared for.
No, that's fine. So we would we declare lead agency, we would do circulation. Mark is saying the fire department and CAC are interested agencies. They've agreed that the involved agencies have already ruled. That would be Board of Health and DEC, right? Is that?
We've already declared ourselves lead agency.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, this is, yes.
Yeah, all those are done.
Sorry, December 19th, right? We declared ourselves lead agency, but there was an open question on the steep slopes permit.
Okay, well then, if we've already done, did we send to the CAC? If not, I would suggest we do that. Because that's a recommendation from the engineer. So if it's a special use permit procedure, we would need to set a hearing.
Why do we need the CAC? There's no wetlands. Is there wetlands?
Yes, there's no wetlands.
Well, steep slopes, they get involved.
With an extreme steep slope?
Yeah.
So I do, I don't know, Jeff, if you don't mind clarifying for me, I thought when we spoke last week, we were only going to need moderately. So as far as our encroachment on extremely steep slopes, it's only a tiny corner of what is a pretty small piece. It's not terribly contiguous with the rest of the.
Yeah, the question is the area that's being disturbed greater than 10,000 square feet? The law doesn't say how much of that 10,000 square feet would be disturbing, which begs the question of if you're just encroaching there 2 square feet, you still need the special use permit. And with the way that it reads, it seems that you do. I just find the code map, and this is what.
I have the full size.
Yeah.
I thought this came up and I thought we established what the deal was with this.
No, we kicked it to a decision that
Yeah.
was not
Okay.
made.
Sorry.
So this is greater than 10,000 square feet.
I thought we had
No.
gotten an opinion. Okay.
It's that he needs, not unless the town engineer, I don't think we asked the town engineer, but just,
So I remember we were saying if it's 2 feet if you're just disturbing 2 feet, does it need, are we talking, is that enough?
Yeah, I'm looking
Okay.
at that.
Right, there are on this property over 10,000 square feet of extremely steep slopes.
Are they disturbing any of the extremely steep
Yes.
slopes?
And the answer is
Okay.
yes.
It's just one more step, it's not, the end of the world.
this is a question, how much is
Depends on your
disturbing on that?
Well, the extremely steep slopes, we're only disturbing right around, it's basically the square footage of the pool itself, which is 40 by 80, so.
Oh,
2,400?
It's not
it's not trivial.
Yeah, yeah.
The rest of the area that we're actually disturbing is all moderately steep slopes. That's the primary amount of area that we're disturbing. But that's mostly moderate. The only small area, it's only a very small area that's steep that we're disturbing.
Is there a part of the map that shows that disturbance?
Yeah.
Go to the old one.
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
there is.
Oh, okay, thank you. It's got the,
Yeah, and so you'll see that basically just where that pool patio is, and pretty much in just the area of the pool itself, that's in that dark red, extremely steep slope area.
The pool and the pool patio?
where's the,
Section code is because that would be
any disturbance?
This.
Okay.
Right, so our question was,
The deep red is it's steep.
Yeah.
Extremely steep.
yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
question one was, right, what's the contiguous piece? Is this the contiguous piece? Is this contiguous piece 10,000 because there's about 30,000 on the entire property? So you're actually close.
Sporadic.
Yeah, I would argue like this is the small section, and the question is whether that's contiguous to the rest. To me, it looks like it's isolated enough, but of course.
That's true. Unbiased argument.
It's weird because it comes to a point and touches.
Yeah, perfect.
And the question,
Right, and that's probably just the nature of the software.
Wanna zoom in?
And the topography and,
I think I would go ahead and, I would do
A hearing?
I would do the special use permit, yeah.
The thing is, you will need a public hearing.
I know.
Okay.
It's better, you know what, because the water runoff that might cause, at least we need a public hearing.
Was that a just do it? Okay.
Do the hearing.
So, we've already circulated, I just would recommend the CAC get a copy of this. So if we have to amend the circulation, that's easy.
Why don't we do
then-
a motion to do the soil and erosion and moderately steep slopes conditioned on fulfilling the open items, and then a second motion to recirculate to the CAC and set a public hearing on the extremely steep slopes?
So we're issuing 3 permits.
Yeah.
Okay.
You also need you need 2 steep slopes permits.
Yeah, one for moderate.
Yeah, I guess we
And the
do.
plan
It's
is
it's
just
a
an approval
strange,
plan.
it's a very strange,
But we're not issuing all the approvals right now.
no, we're showing, so the good news is we would conditionally issue 2 permits, but the bad news is you would need 3 permits, and the third one you wouldn't get.
And you're gonna get a public hearing.
Yeah.
What's the,
Oh, and the conditions would be, we would need Mark Long, CPL, to tell us that you've gotten with him and
Everything's been
you've resolved all his open because he told us he still has open comments.
yeah, and that's what we hope to resolve this Thursday with our civil engineer to speak with them and then provide our response.
And so I guess the only open discussion for the board is on the bond. So if you guys remember, for our Orchard, we did a $3,000 escrow to basically pay for the spot site visits but that was not a bond in favor of the town to restore the land in the event that the project didn't finish.
So we're gonna need a town attorney for that.
That's the point of the bond? If they start and don't finish?
Yeah.
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 Go in and finish it?
Yeah, it's-
Restoration bond, we're gonna need a town attorney for the language of the bond.
Okay, so that is a recommendation from CPL, so that is something that will be put in as a condition. The steep slopes, the driveway is not in the extremely steep slopes, so that would be the permits that were, okay,
Paul?
yeah.
I don't know that he needs two, one for moderate and one for extreme, because in F, 25072F, approval standards for extremely steep slopes, it says in number 2, one of the conditions is that the activity complies with all standards in subsection E, which is approval standards for moderately steep slopes. So it seems if you're approving the extreme steep slopes, they have
Okay,
to approve that anyway.
I mean, that works for me a little bit better. I don't think we need to bifurcate the slopes permits, but should we go ahead with the soil erosion thing? Is that?
Sure.
I mean, it doesn't really get you anywhere to
It's
do one
right.
independently of the other.
Well, so I'm a little confused then. So I don't need a separate steep, I don't need two separate steep slopes from this?
You need
I'm saying
one.
if you get the more difficult one, it will cover everything.
Okay, understood.
Instead of getting
So I
two.
still need to go for the extremely steep slopes?
Yeah.
and fill out the
You can
stuff.
get away with it.
So I just need clarification then on what additional materials I would need to submit and what the length of that process would be if we're to come back for a public hearing.
Yeah, so you've already submitted the steep slopes application, all right, I realize we don't have a separate one, do we?
Correct, it's the same application, pretty much. It's just the process becomes different and involves things like the public hearing.
Yeah.
I don't think you, I was saying.
I agree, I'm just debating whether we need a special use permit application, but,
Well, it's the same, you just encircle.
you did that already, the special use permit?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, then you're good, okay. So what we would do is, apparently we've done the circulation, so we would simply set a hearing date. And you're going to work with Mark Long on resolving the open comments, which if you can do it before the next meeting, we can maybe do everything without conditions, except for the bond.
Right,
we
secret
could
determination
probably-
as well.
Yeah, and we would do that at the next meeting. I would do it all at one time. I would not do it
Yeah, you're
tonight.
fine.
Yeah.
You don't get anything out of doing it tonight.
Do you have a lawyer that, normally your guy's lawyer will draft that document about the bond, and then our town attorney will review it?
I believe he can take care of it. I mean, he asked me before this meeting just to let him know when to FedEx the bond check. So-
Oh, that's
He's
right,
ready
we need
go.
we need to
Then
have
amount.
an amount about the bond, so normally we
I
get.
think
it from
it's
the town
normally,
engineer.
we have some kind of an agreement, right?
We normally get it from the town engineer, how much do you think it's
He
gonna cost?
already gave it to us, $10,000.
All right,
But don't we need an agreement of some kind, or?
a bond? Yeah, that's the
Okay,
agreement.
okay.
That's the document that the town attorney.
Okay, but does anybody need to draft anything, is what I'm asking?
Their lawyer,
Okay, so your lawyer will submit a proposed bond,
will review
the draft, not the money yet,
Yes.
and our lawyer will review it.
Yes. But we could still give the amount for the 10,000.
And it's 10,000
Yes.
per the recommendation of CPL.
They're standard bond forms. You're not going to incur a lot of legal expense. It's a standard form.
Yeah, it's a
I'm
standard.
familiar with the process. I believe he
Yeah.
provided a $1,000 bond for his driveway permit or something a few years ago.
No, that's different,
Oh,
that's
it's different,
different,
okay.
that's different. This is the bond for, let's say, during the process, and they have to restore it, it's different.
It's okay, you maybe use the term restoration bond.
Yes. The driveway bond.
So I guess then we just simply need a motion. When's the next available agenda?
You tell me.
March.
Our March is, our.
How is March, are you available in March, or?
I'll be available as soon as
He wants to get it going, that's what it is.
clients.
But we don't have a
Did you ever
public.
take vacation? I mean, you never,
When is the cornerstone coming back? That's the big
I don't know. We could do March 5th.
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as we can resolve the engineer's comments.
Well, even if you don't, we can do it as a conditional then, but, you know, if you do it by then, that'd be great. So the motion would be to put this matter, it's the Scheinberg soil.
Extremely steep slope permit.
And related permits on the agenda for a public hearing on March 5th. Is everybody okay with that? Somebody second it?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Yes, so work on the draft of the bond restoration, this way simultaneously, you know.
I'm sorry, can you add to the resolution and circulate the materials to the CAC for review?
Yeah.
You gonna put it in there?
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
putting
okay.
it.
Am I responsible for that, or is that?
We'll
No,
do
no,
this. Yeah. And tell them that we're gonna need it by March 5th. I don't think they may not be able to do it.
When is March? Is that 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay. All right, can you, if you're gonna do a presentation on the public hearing, just in case there's public, so you might wanna, is it the same? You're not, and there's no changes, right?
Aside from any changes that would come about from the result of the engineer's comments,
Okay,
it
great.
would be the same.
So that, just so your client knows, the public, the people around, the property owners around the
Yes, we're gonna get something, so.
border are gonna get notice.
So they might react.
You might not.
Set? Good.
Yeah. Thank you very much. All right, next item is a discussion item, Riegert Property Ag Events, 6773
Oh, well, I
Bryan
didn't get
Road.
anything, so I forgot, we tried.
Okay, it's off the agenda. Ason's off the agenda. Francois off the agenda, and Long Pond, did you have something on Long
I think Mike
Pond?
has
or-
something. I mean, Mike, Jeff, sorry.
Did you have something on Long Pond?
I'm
I-
tired.
Yeah, Arlene reminded me this evening that I had to write a letter, which I did this evening, but I
forgot
did the
it.
inspection last week, and they are,
Why don't you go on the mic, this way we could hear.
Don't put them back on unless unless I look at it first.
Stop.
What?
So I did the inspection at Omega last week, and substantively, they are fine. There have been no changes to the site. They are still under the maximum allowed camping units of 74. And again, no significant change. So I don't see any reason at this point to deny the renewal of the permit. But I did want to talk about the fact that they are still held to the stipulation of settlement from 1974, I believe. No, 1991, sorry, 1991. In which Long Pond Campground, when it became owned by CHV, I think it was a company, the attempt was made to get them to fall under the new, at that time, new camping trailer campground law. They argued that they were pre-existing non-conforming. It was a successful argument. It was negotiated through the stipulation of settlement, and they have to meet that specific requirement. So one of the things that I pointed out during the inspection is in those requirements, each trailer, camping trailer, is supposed to be registered and licensed to be able to go on the road. The changes that I noticed were that some of the camping trailer units had been improved and basically turned into little tiny homes on trailer beds. And the claim is that they are still roadworthy, so to speak. The trailers themselves are licensed, but they have not been inspected and they are not registered. And in the conversation with Mr. Backus, they feel onerous to go through the process of taking each trailer across the river to the DMV to get inspected and to get its registration. And my suggestion was that he review the stipulation of settlement and look at either coming into compliance with the existing camping trailer campground code or negotiating a new settlement.
So where do we go? What should we do at this point?
Again, there are no substantive changes to the site itself or the use of the site itself. And so I think this is something that we need to continue to pursue.
Okay, so they don't expire till April.
Exactly, so there's
Yeah.
time, right?
Okay.
And so I think that we can table it, we can have this continued conversation with Omega and how they want to proceed, and then that can be information for you.
Okay. So no action tonight, and you have time. Okay, excellent.
I was curious that this package you attached a new permit.
Yeah.
From the Department of Health that, from,
No, this is signed in 2024. The permit is always, the Department of Health always expire differently from their annual permit, from our renewal. That one expires 2024, this year.
October this year.
Is it April?
No, it's effective April. It expires October 31st.
Ah, so maybe they already get one this year.
So that was in the package that I received.
The Department of Health issue already their approval.
Department of Health permit from April till October.
April of this year?
Yeah.
But is that because it's seasonal, right? That's,
Yeah.
they operate seasonally.
So the Department of Health, they've already issued a temporary residence permit for the property.
Yeah, it's here.
Yeah.
Well, it's,
To operate a campground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
that-
it is technically premature, and because the Department of Health shouldn't issue a permit
Yeah,
unless they.
normally they
are
wait
in
for us.
compliance
I
with
don't know
local
why they
law.
get that.
They aren't out of compliance because they're not allowed to operate right now. So their renewal really should come first before the health department gives them a permit.
They normally do. I don't know why.
Effective April 30th, so I'm not sure. Never happened like this before.
Yeah.
that was a
Maybe
good spot. I missed that. That's
I
a
know,
good, that was a
that's very
good call, Jerry.
I don't know how Skip got
That's a
the
little weird.
renewal without our renewal. We normally give the renewal first.
That's usually really good about calling us in that regard and confirming that they have any property has the right permits.
Yeah.
But they did not.
Okay, I mean, sorry, go ahead, Jerry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I didn't, there was no copy of your inspection either.
Oh, yeah, that,
Yeah, we don't, yeah.
Yeah, Arlene has that now. so
yeah,
it's a
I forgot to bring it over.
Okay.
So it's on our-
So we'll put this on in March, or maybe the first meeting in April, but you're gonna have more details for us, and if they have to come in and discuss, if we can do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so
in
nothing to
the-
be done here.
In the
That's my favorite kind of
meantime, otherwise they cannot operate in April, so we need to address this in March. So we need to talk to them how they're gonna move forward to this.
Well, the permit doesn't expire till like,
April
Yeah, but they,
30th.
yeah, the
yeah,
end
but
of
they
April.
open, I think, April.
Okay, but their permit's still good from last year.
Yeah, well, no, because under that stipulation, they're not allowed to operate, and it's different than.
Till they get their annual permit
Can't
renewal.
operate in the month of December. Under their stipulation, they're not allowed to operate, forget the month, I think it's November through March.
The
they're not allowed to
season.
operate.
Right, this is effective April 30th.
Yeah, which is why the health department would have done that, right? So, they're in a whole different category, they're the only trailer campground that falls under that, because it's specifically negotiated.
Okay, the town of Clinton permit is good until April 30th. If they're operating in April, they're okay, till April 30th. Right? What am I missing?
But they open in May, I think May, yeah.
Okay, then, okay, good.
Although, the point is just that, under that stipulation, they're not allowed to operate
Yes.
between those months, and I think it's November
Yeah, okay.
through March. If the permit was issued for 12 months, then it was incorrectly issued.
Supposed to be seasonal.
Okay, so you'll tell us when to put it back on, and then we can, okay, good. Does anybody have anything else for tonight?
I have the minutes.
I make a motion to approve of the minutes.
Thank you, Jerry.
What are the dates, just for fish?
December 5th and December 19th.
Okay, somebody second, all in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
comments from town board? Oh, do you have anything you want?
We're trying to get out of here. We're tired. Oh, that's right, Catherine. We're
Don't get
forgetting Catherine.
don't get between us and the door, because it could be.
Well, can we
Please
request
stampede.
microphone, please, Catherine?
Okay, so motion adjourned, wait a second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, Brandon, thank you very much. Again.
Running an hour and a half ahead of schedule.